So how's your lunch? Is it tasting good? I hope great. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing a very old friend of mine, and I don't mean he's old. I mean that we've been friends for a long time. This is Josh Slotnick. He's a Missoula County Commissioner and someone who practices what he preaches in helping us have really strong sustainable land policies for Montana and for Missoula. We're so lucky to have him. I've known Josh for decades. Yeah. And we worked together on the community gardening project for Missoula when it first was funded with the US Farm Bill. And I learned so much from Josh from day one and continue to. And I'm so happy that you agreed to talk here and it, represent Missoula County and our efforts to have a really good, strong gardening program in the community. But most of all, Josh has an expertise in collaboration and bringing partners together to have dreams come true. And I know if any of you have a chance, he's got a great TED Talk out there. So you just type in Josh Slotnick TED Talk and you can get the flavor of how he approaches all aspects of life with such enthusiasm and goodness. So let's welcome Josh, and he's going to be our luncheon speaker today.
Give you another time. Thank you. Mary made the crazy choice of believing in me like 32 years ago, and I am forever in your debt a little bit. So first, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's fun to talk about food. Food has been my kind of main thing for decades. As Mary said, we worked together on the formation of an organization called Garden City Harvest, whose mission was food security. We wanted to figure out how we could make good food available to everybody and make sure that the way we were growing that food was also secure. We started off with 3 people and a little idea, and I left a handful of years ago to become a county commissioner, but now there's more than 30 people that work there and over 20 different gardens and 4 farms, and it's just off and running. And I would say the thing I'm most proud of is that it's part of the cultural fabric of Missoula. People who've lived here a long time would be like, oh, Garden City Harvest, it's just like the M, it's just here. Well, it's only just here because people like Mary had some vision and belief in. Back then, I was a young person who had all kinds of fire and intensity, but not a whole lot of wisdom. And Mary helped me out. So I want to talk with you all a bit about food and why we make the food choices we do from my perspective as a vegetable farmer for a long time, and now as somebody who works in public service, and to the cultural forces I believe that keep us from making better food choices. So first thing I wanted to say is a bit about conferences in general. Sure, the presentations are good, but as most people know, the best things happen in those informal conversations. When you're standing, getting food or coffee, and you look at somebody's name tag and you say, oh, hey, Diana, how's it going? Where do you work? And you know that you can have a trusting conversation with Diana because she's self-selected to be here. You were among your kind of professional club, or you wouldn't be here. Because you have that sense of trust, you let down your guard just a little bit and ask Diana about, what does Summit do? Where do you work? And often, 2 people will have a conversation that will create new information, new insights, and inspiration that wouldn't have happened otherwise. This is the rare instance where 1 + 1 can equal 3. Right? You get something more than the sum of its parts. I'm only bringing this up because we just had a pretty rough election season. Rough meaning 50% of the country doesn't trust the other 50% and vice versa. And I'm just wondering if when we have casual interactions with other people beyond conferences, we could apply some of that same ethic. I'm trying to do it myself. It's a new thing. Standing in line, getting coffee, and just drop my guard for just a moment and be like, hey, how you doing? And maybe some of these little positive interactions can disrupt the distrust we supposedly have with one another. Okay, on to food. Often when I've heard people speak about nutrition, the language sounds a little bit far away from food. There's language around protein and carbs and polypeptides and amino acids, and I don't really know what those things are, but I know what breakfast, lunch, and dinner are. We We live in the world of food. Nutrition seems like the science on top of that. Most people, everybody, lives in the world of food. And though nutrition as a science gains new ground every year and we learn new stuff, we have known what it is to eat well for a really long time. If I was to throw out this question and get some people to answer, what does eating well look like? What are some of the things we're supposed to do? And can you say it in food, not in nutrition? Steak. We're supposed to eat steak? I don't think so. So eating well, what should we do? What should we be eating? I'm gonna say asparagus is a vegetable. We're supposed to be eating vegetables and fruit, whole grains. Perfect. How about things we're not supposed to eat? Lots of sugar, fried food, heavily processed food, like the stuff you buy at a convenience store. So we were able to say this in just a few seconds without even consulting anybody's phone. This stuff is just ready knowledge. And for whatever reason, we haven't, as a society, been able to go there. Nearly 6 out of 10 people suffer chronic illnesses, illnesses that are made worse by dietary choices. 6 out of 10. And we know what we're supposed to do, but we just can't seem to do it. So I wondered why. And I came up with 2 cultural forces that I believe are preventing us from gaining ground. And each of these cultural forces that are working against us, I believe also come with an answer or a proper response. But they're really difficult. So the first one, I need to look at my notes. I'm gonna paint a picture for you and tell me what this picture means. I could have done this with slides, but I thought it would be more fun to do it this way, and I didn't want to pick the pictures. So imagine this. There's, say, 6 or 7 people sitting around a table like this size, and the table's full of food and plates and dishes, and there's wine, and you can tell that somebody's telling a story, and their hands are moving wildly, and people are laughing. Plates are full. What are those people experiencing? Celebration, that's a good one. That's great. What else? Anybody? Community, that's fantastic. Oh, it could be a holiday of some type. Community celebration, a holiday. Love, I love that one. An intact family. Man, there's food all over there. Relationship, that's great. Okay, here's another one. There's a woman sitting in a car. She's dressed in kind of business casual attire. There's cars all around her. She's moving. She's got a coffee in one hand and a pastry in the other hand, and her hands are on the steering wheel. And she's talking because she's talking on the phone, but it's hands-free. She's not breaking the law. What's she experiencing right there? Stress, hurry, anxiety, for sure. Anything else? Those are good ones. She's overwhelmed. Maybe. She's in traffic. She's talking to somebody. Yeah. What's that? Chaotic, for sure. It's chaotic. Okay, I got 2 more. 2 adults, 2 kids around a small table. It's dinner, but it's clean. Doesn't look like chaos. And you can tell one of the parents is asking a kid a question, like, how was your day or something? And the kids look kind of mildly annoyed, but the parents look happy. What are those folks experiencing? Family. It's a big thing to experience. Anything else? Routine, consistency, predictability, stability, security. It's really good. Togetherness, like that one. Okay, last one. The view on this scene, we're standing like in the wall, behind the TV. There's a big TV here. Looking out, it's dark. There's a guy in sweatpants. slouched on a couch, and his face is lit up by the television. The room is dark, and he has a pizza box on the coffee table, half open. What's he experiencing? I don't know. He may be safe. That's not where I was going, but if you want to call it security, that's good. So isolation. Yeah, it's isolated. Well, in all of these scenes, the food is just freighted with meaning. It isn't just food. When I say freighted, I mean, imagine a rail car that carries something. This food is carrying meaning. And these people are experiencing meaning, and food is part of the vehicle that gets in them. Another thing about food, you eat it, right? And the act of eating is super intimate. You put it in your body, and you do it. Nobody else does it. It's within this sort of very private space bubble that's just yours. Think about if we're feeding someone, a child, typically a child, or someone who needs others to help them get through the day. And often for people, this intimate act is also an act of control, of trying to make sense out of their situation. Whether it's not eating enough or eating too much or whatever their food choices are, because it is such an intimate act and it's all about you and your person, you can exert control there, even if you don't have control in other parts of your life. Look at my last one. Oh, okay. This next thing I'm going to say, I learned this from Mary years ago around people's spending priorities if they don't have a lot of money. So there are 5 of them. Do you remember you taught me this years and years ago? It still holds true. If you don't have a lot of money, what's the first thing you're spending your money on? Housing. Second thing, imagine you have kids. What's the second thing you're spending your money on? Childcare. Then the third is transportation. The fourth is your clothes, because nobody wants to look poor. The fifth thing, you taught me this, man. The fifth thing is food. So food is freighted with meaning. It's super intimate and a space of control, and it's also a place where you can save money. If you put all these things together, we realize that food is a really big part of our identity. Your food choices are part of who you believe yourself to be, and mostly this is done without question. You only question it, or typically we only question it when someone questions us. Why are you eating that? And then you, whoa. And our typical first response is, you're inside my little space bubble. This is none of your business. And I've seen people make changes, big major changes in how they eat. And they've really only come in 2 ways, because it can feel like an assault on one's identity. The first way is when it's a life and death thing. So my mom had heart disease, had to have a stent, and she changed how she ate. No problem, real quick. The other way that I saw change happen was through my work at Garden City Harvest, and it was all via personal experience. So I worked at the peas farm, 10 acres of vegetables, university students, and kids would come up regularly on field trips. And we had kids' camps up there too. So at the kids' camps, kids would get the chance to pull a carrot out of the ground and then wipe it off in their pants and take a bite. And their eyes get huge. It tastes so good. And then it came out of the ground, and they pulled it out of the ground. And then they would harvest kale later that day, which is like, kids don't want to eat that. No way. They tear the leaves off the stems, go into the kitchen, and clean them, and then rub olive oil and salt on them and put in the oven, and they come out as kale chips, and the kids eat the kale chips, and they are so pumped up. They pulled the carrot out of the ground. They harvested the kale. They cooked the kale. Then they ate the kale because they were already in it. They were already personally invested. And then I would hear from parents, oh my God, now I got to go buy my kid carrots and kale. At the community gardens that Mary talked about, at River Road, I saw community gardeners harvest lettuce and other vegetables. I remember the lettuce under the arm, and then walk back to their trailer park. Not typically where you would imagine people eating expensive vegetables, right? And there was one brother-sister pair that lived together. And I asked her about, like, how's it going? And she's like, oh, it's so fun. I'm making all these new foods from the food that we grew. And then she said, then I make everybody sit at the table and eat together. Think about what that does, what the force of that table. And when it said food freighted with meaning, if this person put the effort into cooking, she wants her household folks to sit with her. And now everybody's looking at each other instead of looking at the TV. Their lives changed, not because an authority told them, you should eat vegetables, but because of her own personal experience. It's really powerful stuff. So the lesson I took out of having these experiences was that food is central to people's identity. And asking people to change their identity is most of the time met with resistance. If we want people to change how the food they eat, one way, I know as you guys as professionals probably know more ways, but one way I know is to create the opportunity for personal experiences with food. If people have a personal experience, they're invested, then they make a change on their own. Their identity isn't under assault, their identity got to grow. It's really different. So as people who are attempting to get others to change how they eat, I think part of our responsibility is to figure out how to create these types of experiences. And they can be for everyone. You don't have to be fully able-bodied. They can be for everyone. This can be in growing food, it can be in cooking food, serving food. Just being involved is very different than opening a can. So I said there were two cultural forces that I really believe are working against us eating better. That first one is around food being central to our identity. The second one is much more of a public force. So when I ran not long ago at the grocery store of all places, because we're talking about food, and I said, hey man, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. And he answered in pretty much the way everyone who's in my circle answers when I ask them how they're doing. And they go beyond, well, pretty good, how are you? They say, whoa, I'm totally swamped. It's just been so busy. Everybody says this. No matter the industry we work in, whether it's nutrition or public service. So right now, as I'm talking to you, a blizzard, a massive snowdrift of email is slamming my inbox, as probably all of you. And I have to race off here when I leave, race and drive fast up north to get to another thing up just north of Arlee. And you all could be doing many other things. All of us are being professionally evaluated on the basis of production. How much did you get done? And the people who work for you and the people you work for are all under that same heavy weight of expectation that you guys gotta get a lot done. You just have to. Now think about that as a reward system, or that's what we are rewarding. You have to get a lot done. You have to be successful at your work, and you do that by working really hard. It means you're going to do some email at night. Send texts while you drive. Figure out dinner as you're picking up kids. And no one is making a mistake here. This is a systemic thing, not a bad personal choice. If you have really 10 hours of work to do in an 8-hour day, and you have to drive kids around, the drive-through facilitates your life. Our lives are being governed by work that's being evaluated by production, and our food choices facilitate that. So we make food choices that facilitate production, but aren't really that good for us. The opposite of having a life that's designed by production or oriented by production is having a life that's oriented by intention. So it is your intent to cook a good meal for your household and make everybody sit together. Or it is your intent to walk with a friend once a week because relationships are important. Or to care for the animals that you live with. Whatever it is, you make an intention and act on that. And what we've done instead is have our lives ruled by production, which, as I said, facilitates bad food choices. It just does. There's not enough time. I'm almost there. So How do we respond to this? Can we just generally, all of us in every profession, just ease up a little bit? Just ease up a little bit. And without being icky to the people we work with, can you say something instead of like, did you get that thing done? Or let it known that you need to get that done? Ask somebody, did you cook a good meal last week? Have you spent any great time? What did you do last week that was wonderful with the person you live with? Can we, to some degree, de-emphasize production and begin to emphasize intention just a little bit? And someday maybe reward people for making the kinds of choices we all know we wish we could make, but there just isn't the space for it. So I'm talking about is culturally creating the space for making better choices, which is really difficult. Shifting culture is really difficult. So there you go. I'm going to review. Number one, our homework here, if I'm going to leave, create opportunities for people to have meaningful personal experiences with food. That encourages new choices. It's not telling. And the second one, work within your own sphere on shifting your culture away from production and a little bit more towards intention. In a world like that, it'll be easier to make better food choices. Thanks a lot.